أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'm really happy to have with me Brother Ali Manji, another amazing reciter from our community, and someone who really holds Quran, the Holy Quran, dear to him. And it'd be nice to go through his journey and see what it is about the Holy Quran that he holds dearly, and how he managed to create this relationship throughout his life. So, Ali, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for for spending some time sharing your story with us. You mentioned you started off with memorization. How did that go? What was your how did it feel actually memorizing the Quran and going? I'm guessing you memorized quite a fair chunk of the Quran by when you were focused on memorization.
Yeah. So I mean, I eventually went off onto the voice and tune path, but by the point that I transitioned, I was I would say I think there were 4 juz that we'd memorized, but there were members of my class who memorized 10.
Yes.
I think some even went further and they participated in competitions and won awards for memorizing 10, 15 juz. But one of the reasons it was so amazing was because you noticed outside of the realm of Quran, memorization had a lot of impact. So devoting some time to memorizing Quran, I found personally academics became a bit, easier. Things would stick in your head. You got into a good routine with work discipline. Your memory improved because you're devoting time to remembering things. And it's also satisfying on another level to know Surah Baqarah, for example, which is, quite a difficult surah and a long-winded surah. And we didn't start off by learning the meanings, but there's a point when you start memorizing and you look into things that for little chunks, I will not confess to knowing a lot of the Quran translation-wise. There's little chunks that you understand the meaning of, and you start to appreciate, the stories and the parables that you get, which is very satisfying. And then going up into later school and older years when you're challenged about views on the Quran, and when people bring up things to you, it's nice to have a little repository of ayat which you can say, you know what, this is what the Quran says, that's what it says. And I wish I did it more, but at least the basic grasp of that was really nice.
No, that's really beautiful, actually, the way you've just taken what you've learned from memorizing the Quran to your day-to-day routine about they say that I think it was drilled into us when especially when you were part of that first Darul Quran group and going through the memorization, saying that the more you memorize the Quran, the better your memory would be, and it goes to show that it is true. And you're right in terms of the discipline as well. The discipline to be able to four ajza is a huge chunk. It's how many pages would it be approximately?
Well, I think it's something like 80 pages at the time.
80 pages is huge. So to have that discipline to be able to consistently do it, and not only be able to memorize more, but to be able to remember what you memorized previously, that requires a lot of time and effort and discipline. So that took you, that gave you good, put you in good stead for your day-to-day routine, I guess, right? And then you went into voice and tune after that. What caused you to have that change of heart, so to speak?
So it probably backdates a little bit when I can't remember the exact age, 10, 11. And, people, when they're driving the car, people put on CDs of Noha or something they like. And my dad put on a CD in the car of a really famous passage of Quran recited by a Qari called Abdul Basit. And it's Surah Takwir. It's one of the most famous passages in that style of Tahqiq Quran because of the pitch he goes. And I was just listening to this. This is before I'd started on voice and tune. And I was absolutely amazed because A, his voice was higher than anything I've ever heard. And B, he held his breath for about a minute in one of these passages. And he didn't stop. He didn't, the tune wasn't strained. Is incredible. And that sort of sparked a little interest there for me. And it wasn't really anything I acted on. I'd try and imitate it and, have a bit of fun in the car. And then when we got to these classes and you see Agha Rahimi, who is a specialist, whose voice is incredible, who spent years studying it and has the ability to pass that on, that for me was, I enjoyed the memorization, but that for me was too exciting a prospect to ignore. And so I moved on to that side of things quite quickly.
Yeah, I remember Al his specialist mic system, and I remember
Which he
thinking, oh
didn't
my
need,
goodness.
to be honest.
Sorry?
He didn't need the mic at all, to be honest. His
He
voice was
didn't
very
need the
powerful.
mic at all, but I think he recited in my wedding. I asked him to recite in my
Really?
wedding, and he brought his own mic system. I remember that. He refused to use the Stanmore mic system, but he brought his own mic system to use. So yeah, no, he was a specialist in every right in what he did. That's really nice. Thank you so much for sharing that.
So I've chosen a page from Surah Al-Baqarah, which is ayah 58 to 61.
Okay.
Its vague background is a story of the people of Nabi Musa rejecting bounties of Allah and then being punished for it.
Mhm.
But from a voice and tune perspective, this ayah ends with this page ends with a really long ayah, which I used to use personally as a little breath holding test, because one of the skills of a reciter is a long breath. And I've always found that to be a difficult one to master. So I'd always use this as a little test of it, to see how far I could get through. And usually the answer was not very far, but it's a nice one to try and do. There's a few long ayah in there.
Okay, let's go. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإذ قلنا ادخلوا هذه القرية فكلوا منها حيث شئتم رغدا وادخلوا الباب سجدا وقولوا حطة نغفر لكم خطاياكم وسنزيد المحسنين. بدل الذين ظلموا قولا غير الذي قيل لهم فأنزلنا على الذين ظلموا رجزا من السماء بما كانوا يفسقون. وإذ استسقى موسى لقومه فقلنا اضرب بعصاك الحجر فانفجرت منه 12 عينا قد علم كل أناس مشربهم كلوا واشربوا من رزق الله ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين. وإذ قلتم يا موسى لن نصبر على طعام واحد فادع لنا ربك يخرج لنا مما تنبت الأرض من بقلها وقثائها وفومها وعدسها وبصلها قال أتستبدلون الذي هو أدنى بالذي هو خير اهبطوا مصرا فإن لكم ما سألتم وضربت عليهم الذلة والمسكنة وباءوا بغضب من الله ذلك بأنهم كانوا يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون النبيين بغير الحق ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Ahsant. That was so beautiful, mashallah. I was just entranced by the recitation and the whole journey of how you recited this passage. So thank you so much. That was really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
What about, so your voice and the tune that you recite, is that based on any particular reciter, or is it just something that you develop with time? How did you develop this particular tune that you have?
That's a good question. So that, as you know, and some of our viewers might know, in the tahqiq discipline, there are 7 main tunes,
Yeah.
and these follow a specific set of notes, as it were, and they follow a different pattern, and each one is a very distinct sound. And so some people might recognize some of them. You know that, for example, the Munajat of Imam Ali, we recite it at Stanmore. That I think Murtaza Uncle really characterizes in the tune of Bayat. You know, the
Yeah.
Mawda ya ya. That's Bayat. That's a very classic, specific tune. Or the Adhan is sometimes recited in one of 2 tunes, and that's a very classical tune. And so Al-Rahimi brought us these tunes. He gave us passages from Qaris where he highlighted where the tunes started, where they ended, where they transitioned. And we'd start by copying them without really thinking about it, just copying the sounds they make and seeing how we familiarize ourselves with them. And then we found favorite tunes. And for me, there's one tune called Hijaz, which is a personal favorite of mine. So I'd always recite in that out of habit. And then as you become familiar with more tunes and you try and improvise, we tried to make things up with a few different tunes. And so what I recited just before was started in the tune of Bayat, and then it transitioned into 2 other tunes, and then it went back to Bayat at the end, which is a cultural norm for the tahqiq tradition.
For sure. No, thanks for that. Any particular reciters you listen to, names wise?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. There's one reciter who we've listened to, myself and my brother, more than anyone else, whose name is Qari Mahmoud Ali Al-Banna, not the most famous one. And there are many, many other Qaris who people know that I'm not aware of, but this man was very influential for me, at least. I'm not sure if he's alive anymore. His recordings are all fairly old, but his work is incredible. That is very influential for us.
Yeah, mainly tahqiq recitation.
Mainly tahqiq, yeah.
So I remember Al-Rahimi would bring a lot of clips from Muhammad Imran.
Yeah.
I still have a lot of those clips. Very, very strong reciter.
There's one of his passages in Hijaz, which was, I think, probably the best passage I've ever heard of any Quran recitation ever.
Yeah, Hijaz is mainly you'd affiliate Hijaz with the Adhan from Makkah, for example, right? Ahsan, no, this has been a very eye-opening conversation for me, and hopefully it's been an equally eye-opening conversation for all of us. So thank you so much, Ali, for your time, for just sharing your expertise and how you balance Quran and your busy schedule, especially for university and work now. So it's really been informative and inspirational, and thank you so much once again for your recitation. Always look forward to it.
Thank you very much for having me, and amazing initiative. Inshallah, it carries on.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.